Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the On the Diamond Into the Deep podcast. As always, I am your host, Mahal, and welcome to episode 92 of the show. And it is a doozy of an episode. The Mariners take a 3-2 lead in the ALCS last night on the back of a solid Bryce Miller start, the bullpen coming in, and then a bottom of the eighth inning where the Mariners bats finally awoke from their slumber, and it is one of the best moments in franchise history. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, where to begin? I guess let's begin here. So I wasn't actually going to record today because I didn't want to do like a full preview for the next two games. I wanted to sort of just see what happened, and then I was going to record after the fact, and it's either a preview or it's a discussion about what went wrong or whatever. But the Mariners won, and they won in really amazing fashion, for lack of being able to think of a better word. It was incredible. I was there in 2022 in late September. I believe it was September 30th, 2022, when Cal Raleigh took a pitch from Acevedo and smashed it off the windows of the Hit Here Cafe. I was there for that moment where the Mariners broke their 20-year playoff drought. I wasn't there last night. I'm in California right now, if you don't know. I was sitting here right behind me, watching the game on my projector. And for 7.5 innings, I was stressed. I was nervous. The offense looked asleep again. It looked like since they got home from Toronto, they had just been put to a slumber. And the offense has been capable of doing that for the entire season, even once Naylor and Suarez got here. And we saw that with the cold streak before the really hot streak at the end of the year. But just walking through that inning, prior to the inning, it was a little bit of disappointment. I talked about disappointment following Game 4 of the series, where it was the Mariners could take a 3-1 lead, or they could drop the game and it would be 2-2 heading into a crucial Game 5. And heading out of Game 4 and into Game 5, I felt, I don't want to say confident. I said confident 2 nights ago. But I felt unreasonably settled with dropping 2 straight games. I think part of that was because I knew this wasn't going to be any sort of easy series. I knew Toronto wasn't going to go away. And Toronto's been a better offense than I think I ever would have given them credit for before playing them. Part of that's because I didn't really watch them much this year, and I look at it and they didn't have the type of names where I was like, well, I'm scared of this guy and this guy. But it's an entire team of guys that just put the ball in play. And for a pitching staff that likes to just attack the zone, that's really difficult to face, especially when they don't chase ever. They don't chase, they don't whiff, they put the ball in play, and if hits are falling, you're going to struggle. And if you don't have command, you're going to struggle. And we saw that for 2 games. But Bryce Miller was really good again last night. He had his split for the most part. He was able to find the upper rail fastball for the most part. And people were questioning why Dan Wilson pulled Bryce Miller that early. And people did the same thing the night before with Luis Castillo. And I'm going to sit here and tell you I didn't have a problem with either. I've actually liked how he's managed the pitching staff in those back-to-back games. And it's because when this Toronto offense gets going, and when they're seeing a pitcher well, and when the pitcher's starting to get some pressure on him and he's starting to miss over the middle of the plate, they're going to make you pay. And in a game that you had to win last night. Because it's going to be very difficult to win. It would be very difficult to win both games back in Toronto. That would be very difficult. So pulling your pitcher as early as he did, I actually liked it, especially with Brian Wu available. And people after Game 4 were questioning, why didn't Wu throw in that game? And it's because of last night. It's because you didn't want to waste the 2 innings that Brian Wu could give you on a game that you're going to lose. I talked about how you wanted to be able to have a short leash with your starting pitcher. And you were able to do that because you had a guy in Brian Wu that could bridge between your starter and your high leverage 8th, 9th inning guys. And that relied on Brian Wu being good. And he was. He did give up a run, but that's all you can ask for. So credit to Brian Wu. But also credit to Dan Wilson. He has managed this postseason very, very well. And I was one of his biggest haters heading out of the regular season. But he's done a great job. I liked what he did with the lineup both the past 2 nights. Getting in Rivas, a guy that makes more contact, a guy that works better at bats for the most part, and a guy that can run the bases and put pressure on the starter or the reliever, whoever's on the mound. I liked that. And I liked putting Julio at leadoff and having your 4 guys that are hitting bunched all together. It gives you a better chance of scoring. Now, the only thing that seemed to bite you was having Canzone in right field. And if I'm Dan Wilson tomorrow night, I'm running out the same lineup I did yesterday, but I'm putting Robles instead of Canzone out there. And part of that's for the defensive capability and running the bases and all of that jazz. But also because you are facing Trey Savage, who his best pitch is the splitter. And he mostly uses that splitter against left-handed hitters, so I would want a right-handed hitter in there. As goofy as that sounds, wanting a right-hander instead of a left-hander against a right-handed starter. But that's how my mind's thinking about it. And if I'm Schneider and I'm a Blue Jays manager, if George Springer is good to go, I'm putting him at the 3 spot, I'm putting Vladdy at the 2 spot, and I'm leading off with probably Nathan Lukes. Because for me, I look at what the Mariners did last night, and they walked Vladdy multiple times, intentionally walked him multiple times. I'm looking at that, and I'm saying, how can we try to combat that? And it's by putting a guy behind him that's a really good hitter. Not that Alejandro Kirk isn't. Alejandro Kirk is a good hitter. But I'm more scared, if I'm Dan Wilson, of George Springer, a Mariners killer, a really good hitter who's having a fantastic year, than I am of an Alejandro Kirk who you can get out better or at a greater chance, in my opinion, than you can Alejandro Kirk. And I've been saying that for multiple games now. Now, will they do it? I don't know. But that's where my mind is thinking if I'm a manager of each of these clubs. You want to combat what's happening, what could happen, all of that jazz. And I think about it in the way that AJ Hinch put Kerry Carpenter at the leadoff spot. he forced the Mariners to make a decision with their starters. And if I'm John Schneider, I'm forcing Dan Wilson to make a decision on whether to pitch to Vladdy or not. If you don't want to pitch to Vladdy, you're pitching to George Springer with a guy on. At least one guy on. And trying to force that decision is going to put stress on the Mariners pitchers. It's going to put stress on Dan Wilson, put stress on everybody. And then if you do walk him and George Springer makes you pay, now you're really questioning what you do next time. Now, do I think John Schneider's going to do that? I probably don't. But you never know. Now back to last night, because I don't want to get into what's happening tomorrow night. It's Saturday. Tomorrow is when we worry about today. Tomorrow. That's not what today is about. Today's about last night. Today's about celebrating what the Mariners just did and just living in some joy. We're repping Geno. Good vibes only, baby. Because what a moment. And what an inning. And let's just go through that whole inning. Heading into the inning, I was about as negative as I get because the offense had looked awful. I said it earlier, they looked asleep since they landed in Seattle pretty much. Since the Julio 2-run homer in Game 3 in the first inning, they looked dormant. Like, they looked asleep. They looked like they didn't have anything. They were putting up bad at bats. They were letting guys like Max Scherzer cook them. Kevin Gausman was cooking them again. But Cal Raleigh, I don't even have words for what this guy is doing at this point. He is playing at an unbelievable level. His season has been incredible. We know that. We know he hit 60 home runs during the regular season. We know he's at, 4 now in the postseason. But that's an MVP moment, dude. And I don't know if that home run itself passes his drought-breaking home run in 2022. But the home run later in the inning does. We all know what's happened. And I don't want to beat around the bush. But great at-bats following Cal from multiple guys. From Polanco, great at-bat. From Naylor, great at-bat. And then Randy Arozarena, who has struggled mightily in the series in this postseason. Credit to him for finding a way to get on base. And he's done that a few times. Walking, getting hit by pitch, whatever. And even when he's struggling, he's still doing stuff that's important. Stealing bases, all of that. And getting hit by that pitch, loading the bases, putting the pressure on significantly on Sir Anthony Dominguez. Credit to him. And credit to Eugenio Suarez, who had already had a good game. Who'd been putting up a lot better at bats, to say the least. Credit to him for working that count, fouling off pitches, and then he gets a fastball away. And I don't know why Sir Anthony Dominguez didn't throw a slider away there, but I'll take it. But credit to Geno for getting that pitch and just taking it where the pitch was. That pitch is away from you, and he took it to right field. And I'm not going to lie. When I came off the bat, I had been thinking right before the pitch, I was like, just a fly ball, dude. That's all we need, just a fly ball. And you have the lead. And when he hit it, I was like, oh, that's at least a sac fly. And I jumped up and I said, oh. And I was like, and then the camera flipped. They changed the cut. They changed the camera angle to the one where you could see out to right field. And I realized pretty much immediately once that angle came on that was gone. And when that was gone, I fell to the floor. And that's the most emotion I've showed for a moment in a sports game ever. And I wasn't there in 1995 when Edgar Martinez saved baseball in Seattle. So I can't say whether this moment passes that in Mariners history, and I don't know if anything could ever pass that. Because without that moment, this moment doesn't happen. But as someone born in the mid-2000s, This is the greatest moment I've ever experienced. It was special. It was amazing. I'm tearing up right now thinking about it again, because I went from this team's really going to F it up again to they're one win away from the World Series through a home run from a guy that's been struggling, but a guy that's been amazing for the Mariners. And that moment is so special. And if they can find a way to win one of these next two, it will just add to that moment for me. And that's a moment in a clip that I'll be watching for years and years to come. I've already found myself watching it over and over again. And this morning I woke up, went on Twitter, and saw a thread on John Boy and of just all the angles from around the stadium and seeing all the different angles and hearing the crowd and hearing what it meant to people and seeing what it meant to people. It made me tear up again, because that moment's bigger than baseball. That moment's about an entire community, an entire city. That represents 49 years of struggling and heartache and frustration for a fan base that has been yearning for a moment like that. And they're not across the finish line yet. And hopefully they do it. But that's a moment that is just a legendary. It's a legendary Seattle sports moment now. And for me, in terms of a top 3 of Seattle sports moments that I've experienced, I mean, I didn't experience the double, but I think that has to be one. Other than that, for me, the top 3 that I have been there for, number 1, it might be that. And Richard Sherman's tip in the end zone in the NFC Championship, that one is right there with it. But as a guy where baseball is everything to me, baseball is my passion, I wouldn't be sitting where I am right now. I probably wouldn't be at the school I'm at, studying what I'm studying, doing what I'm doing this, if not for baseball, and if not for the double, obviously. But for someone where the Mariners are a huge piece of who I am, of what I love, care about, and passionate about, this moment surpasses anything I've experienced in sports. I think it's far and away number 1 for me. And the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl also is up there, but that wasn't a singular moment. The moment that year was the tip against the Niners, and that's a 2 for me, I think. And then I think I put Cal's drought-breaking homer, and I was there for that one. And this moment still passes that, and that one might be 2 for me just because I'm the Mariners again. Like I said, they are huge to me. They are my favorite sports team anywhere. And the emotions that I felt when that happened are it's truly indescribable. I mean, I leapt to my feet, screamed, "Oh!" I think I probably let out a yes, but I blacked out and I was on the floor crying. And it's just, that's everything that my almost 19 years of life now have led up to, because it's so special. Truly so special. And I don't, there aren't words really to describe it, but that's a clip that I'll be watching over and over again the rest of today. And hearing Rick Riz's voice and listening to that call, also just amazing. Because I would go to sleep back in the day, listening to Rick Riz call Mariners games as I fell asleep. And he is part of the reason that I want to do what I want to do, and that I love commentating sports and doing this podcast. And he doesn't do a podcast, obviously, but he's part of the reason I love talking about sports. and he's an inspiration to me. And, the generation before me had Dave Niehaus, but he passed away before I could really remember him. And I've grown up with Rick Riz and now Aaron Goldsmith. And to hear that call by Rick Riz and to hear him do Niehaus's legendary Grand Salami Time, Rye Bread Mustard, all that jazz, so special. It's inspirational. It's the type of moment that I will listen to over and over again as I look to chase my dreams and hopefully eventually break in and be a commentator in professional sports and hopefully eventually be the voice of the Mariners. That's the ultimate dream. It's to take over for Rick Riz. And Rick Riz is one of the nicest guys around, and you could hear the joy in his voice in that moment, the just disbelief, because this team is doing things that you just don't expect. And it's not over yet. And if they advance, there won't be words to describe those emotions. I don't know what that will feel like, especially depending on how they do it. But to see the city of Seattle get to experience what they experienced last night and seeing the clips outside the stadium, inside the stadium, all that is just beautiful. It truly is. And it's something that this city's been yearning for, and I want to be back there. I want to experience it with the city, see the city. But even here in LA, I have people coming up to me that I've never met. And we dap up, shake hands, give a high five, and say, "Go M's." That's people at Disneyland. That's people on my college campus. On Thursday afternoon, I had 6 people dap me up, say, "Go Mariners," that I've never met before Game 4. I had a couple yesterday again. And it's everything. To see the way that the city's rallying behind it. And obviously there are the bandwagon fans, but you need that. And people are experiencing a winning baseball team, and that's how you make lifelong fans. And moments like last night are how you get lifelong fans. And it's beautiful, and it's amazing, and I hope that they can do it in advance, and I wouldn't care if they get crushed by the Dodgers, because seeing them on that stage itself and seeing them advance to that stage would be everything I've ever asked for. That would be the gift of a lifetime. And them winning obviously would be everything too, but an American League pennant would be everything. And I hope they can do it. But again, what a moment last night. There are so many unsung heroes that aren't getting mentioned because of that moment. Cal Raleigh, huge homer. Cal Raleigh, that double play. Randy Arozarena, I don't know if that was a double or a homer, but either way, robbing the extra bases in the top half of the 8th inning. What else? Bryce Miller having a good start, finally being able to shut down some bats. Brian Wu coming in. Matt Brash coming in. He gave up a run, but he did his job for the most part. Gabe Spire with a clean inning. Dan Wilson managing his ass off. There are so many things to shout out. I know I'm forgetting moments. But it was one of the best baseball games ever. One of the greatest moments in Seattle sports history, in Mariners history ever. It's second, I think, in Mariners history easily. And a top 3 to 5 moment in Seattle sports history. And for me, it's the best moment I've ever experienced in sports. And I've already said that, but just repeating myself and nailing that hammer down. And I hope they can do it. Will they do it? I have no idea. But when we get behind the camera, hop on the mic on Tuesday, I hope to be talking about what does a World Series look like. Hope to be having even more emotion than this, because they did the unthinkable. But there's a big chance that still doesn't happen. It's going to be difficult. But you have Logan Gilbert on the mound tomorrow, who's going to be looking for some revenge. And I'll tell you right now, if it goes to a Game 7 Monday night, I will not be in math class at 7:15 p.m. I'll be sat right here. Because it doesn't matter. I'll miss a class for Game 7 of the American League Championship Series. I'll tell you that right now. So just to close things out, what a moment, what a game. This team has been incredible this year, and I hope that they can pull it off. And finally, good vibes only. Go M's, everybody. Let's do this thing. And peace.